Right in the middle strategy, details that describe. Our learning target for this lesson. What we're doing is we're strengthening our writing with revising strategies. The revising strategy we're going to be using today is called right in the middle. Why do we need this? Because writers edit and revise their work so that his or her work is more enjoyable. It is a crucial part of the writing process. How are we going to do that today? I can strengthen my writing by using right in the middle strategy at least one time in my paper while I edit. This strategy today is called right in the middle. This strategy is a sophisticated way to describe a subject without adding additional sentences. When writing, you need a variety of moves or strategies. So we've always learned that adding sentences after a sentence to describe is a great strategy. Now we're going to learn a strategy that you describe right in the middle of the sentence. Then we're going to move on to what does this move look like. Help, I need details. I don't know how to make details stand out. Well, in our first example is the sentence below. In fact, since Brian had come to the small airport in Hamden, New York to meet the plane, driven by his mother, the pilot had spoken only 5 words to him. This has details. First of all, we're learning that, in fact, since Brian had come to the small airport in Hamden, New York to meet the plane, the pilot had spoken only 5 words to him. So as a writer, I did not have to put in this part, driven by his mother. That is an extra detail. It's right in the middle, and so it's like an interruption into the sentence. And if you notice, they use dashes. Okay? And then here, right here, if you see here, is a comma. Okay? So they wanted you to, the writer wanted us to understand that that his mom drove him to the airport, but without saying Brian's mom drove him to the airport, to the small airport in Hamden, New York, to meet the plane. He decided, how can I say that in a different, sophisticated way? Instead, he said, in fact, since Brian has come to the small airport in Hamden, New York, to meet the plane, driven by his mother, the pilot had spoken only 5 words to him. This is from the book Gary Paulson's Hatchet. Moving on to example number 2. This is from The Whipping Boy by Sid Fletchman. This starts out with an orphan boy named Jeremy, the son of a rat catcher, roused from his sleep. So the author could have just put an orphan boy named Jimmy, roused from his sleep. I think I called it Jeremy a minute ago, but it's Jimmy. So an orphan boy named Jimmy, roused from his sleep. So, okay, that's a great sentence, but the author stopped and said, you know what? I want to describe this orphan boy named Jimmy a little bit more. So I'm going to use a right in the middle, and we could call this right in the middle strategy. And I'm going to describe Jeremy stop for a minute and add it right in the middle of the sentence. So he could have said, the son of a rat catcher, Jeremy, roused from his sleep. Lots of different ways you're going to write this. But he said, you know what, let's make it different. Most people always put it at the end or the beginning or the next sentence or the sentence before. Let's actually incorporate it right in the middle. So an orphan boy named Jimmy, comma. Notice this time they use commas. The son of a rat catcher, comma, roused from his sleep. So I know that Jeremy comes from a son of a rat catcher. In other words, his dad is a rat catcher. It's just a different way to introduce or to describe the character Jimmy. Now to put this strategy to work. When you read a sentence, ask yourself these questions. Do I think my reader has a good understanding of this person, place, or thing? So say you're introducing yourself or a new character or a place or a thing, and you just call it like the mall. Well, when I think of a mall, I have all kinds of images going through my head. So stop and say, what can I add to this person, place, or thing to make it more interesting so the reader can really visualize it? The second one is, can they visualize the picture I am seeing in their mind by what I wrote? Okay, so think, can they see that like I see it? Does that mall, does that person, by the way I wrote this, look the same? This might be a great time for somebody that you read the sentence and somebody draws a picture of what that looks like for you. Number 3. What more would I want to know? So put yourself in the reader's shoes. And if you were reading this and you didn't have any idea what was going on, what would you want to know more about? That's what you need to add to your writing. And the last one, number 4. How can I make it more vivid? Okay? Vivid means so that the reader can see it. Actually see it. We all read books that we can read, that do a good job describing. Those are the books we pick up and read. So do that in your writing as well by asking these 4 questions. Okay, right in the middle, strategy in action with Mrs. Ward's writing. This didn't come out as bright as I wanted it to. But there's a little turtle sunbathing in the sun. That doesn't have anything to do with my sentence, but I thought it was a cute picture, so I put it in here. So if we go down to this sentence right here, okay, as far as myself, well, I grew up with, let's say, a little more cush lifestyle. That's my sentence. So I thought to myself, well, as far as myself, I bet my reader is thinking, well, what is she? What does she do? Is she grown? Is she a child? Is she, I assume she's grown, because I'm talking, if we go think about my paper, we're thinking about my dad, so I'm sure she's grown. So I came in there, I said, you know what, I'm going to describe myself by using the strategy right in the middle. And I'm going to put my description that I'm thinking of myself right in the middle. I've got to find a good place to interrupt my sentence. So typically I'm going to do it right after I've just described, right after I've said my name, but in this case I used the word myself. I didn't use my word Mrs. Ward. So I said, as far as myself, comma, a 6th grade teacher, I'm introducing myself as a 6th grade teacher, comma, because that's supposed to be paused when I read that. Well, let's just say I grew up with a little more cush lifestyle. So let's read that without any interruptions. As far as myself, a 6th grade teacher, well, let's just say I grew up with a little more cush lifestyle. So as a reader, I'm like, oh, this lady's a 6th grade teacher. Very interesting. But in my other sentence, it just said, as far as myself, well, I grew up with a little, let's say, a little more cush lifestyle. And I know from my writing, and if you go back and look at my writing, I hadn't really mentioned who I was, what I did, or anything like that. So I took a time out and asked myself those 4 questions and decided I needed to change this sentence by adding a right in the middle description of myself. Now you've seen right in the middle strategy in action. Now it is your turn. Show what you got. You can do it. Describe, describe, describe.